Single mom fell asleep on a stranger's shoulder on the bus. What he did without a word changed everything. The fluorescent lights on the bus flickered overhead, casting pale glows over the rows of mostly empty seats. The city outside blurred into shadows, and the soft hum of the engine filled the silence. At the back of the bus, Rachel sat with her daughter curled in her arms, her tiny head resting against her mother's chest. The child slept soundly, unaware of the cold drafts slipping through the window seams. Rachel adjusted her grip slightly, wincing as her stiff wrist cramped. Her fast food uniform bore the stains of a double shift, grease, ketchup, something unidentifiable from the fryer. She had long stopped caring. What mattered was getting home, and that her daughter hadn't gone to bed hungry. Her body ached. Her eyelids drooped. She tried to fight it, but exhaustion had its own gravity. Her head leaned sideways, landing softly against the shoulder of the man beside her. She didn't notice. The man did. He didn't shift away, didn't clear his throat or recoil. Instead, he glanced down, curious. His suit was expensive, tailored wool, crisp collar, and his leather briefcase sat by his polished shoes. He didn't look like someone who rode buses, not at this hour, not in this part of the city. But here he was, shoulder to shoulder with a stranger who had fallen asleep on him without a word. He looked at the child first, peaceful, then at Rachel's hands, cracked knuckles, faint burns, dirt under the nails. Not the kind of hands you'd expect to see resting so close to a watch that cost more than some rent. He could have nudged her, chosen distance, but he didn't. Instead, he sat still, staring out the window, his expression unreadable, except for the flicker of something behind his eyes. Not pity, something quieter. Recognition, maybe, or memory. The bus rocked gently through the city's sleeping veins. Rachel breathed deeply against his shoulder, unaware of the stillness beside her. As the bus rolled on, carrying the tired, the invisible, the overlooked, one moment passed quietly between two worlds that rarely met. A small, silent grace sat between them, unnoticed, but not unimportant. The man reached into his coat pocket slowly, his fingers brushing against something thin and rectangular. But he didn't move just yet. He waited. The city lights flashed past, and the ride continued. The hiss of the brakes jolted Rachel upright. Her neck ached. Her arms tightened protectively around her daughter, still asleep. Disoriented, she blinked at the unfamiliar stop. A few passengers shuffled out the rear door. The seat beside her was empty. She rubbed her eyes, realizing the man in the suit was gone. Her gaze darted toward the front, then to the back. Nothing. Just tired souls and flickering lights. Something felt off. She reached down to adjust her purse, now half slid under her seat. As she pulled it up, her hand brushed something crisp tucked just inside the zipper. She paused. An envelope. Unmarked. Sealed. Her heart kicked harder. Rachel glanced around. No one was watching. Slowly, she opened it with shaking fingers. Inside, a check. Her eyes scanned the amount, then froze. $50,000. The world tilted. A folded slip of paper fell out with the check. She caught it before it hit the floor. One line, written in clean, firm handwriting. For the woman who reminds me what strength looks like. Rachel stared, breath caught in her chest. She read it again, then again, as if repetition would make it less absurd. This couldn't be real. It had to be a prank, a sick joke, or some mistake. She stood abruptly, jostling her daughter, who stirred but didn't wake. Clutching the envelope, Rachel rushed to the front of the bus. "Driver," she called out. The man, tall, suit. Where did he get off? The driver barely looked up. Couple stops back. Slipped out quiet. Didn't say much. She stumbled down the steps, eyes scanning the street, heart pounding. Her feet hit the pavement, and she turned in all directions. People passed, oblivious. Cars rolled by. But the man was gone. Gone like smoke. Rachel clutched the envelope to her chest, panic colliding with confusion. She wanted to scream after him, to ask why, to give it back, because surely this wasn't meant for her. But there was no one left to ask. Just the echo of the engine pulling away. Just city noise swallowing up the moment. She stood there, under a flickering street lamp, holding something that felt too heavy to be true. A lifeline. A mystery. A message she hadn't expected. Rachel looked down at her sleeping child, unaware of what had just entered their lives. Her knees wobbled, and in the middle of the sidewalk, she whispered aloud, "Why me?" Rachel stood in the corner of the bank, the envelope gripped in her trembling hands. Fluorescent lights buzzed above, her daughter fidgeting beside her, swinging her legs from the bench. The teller examined the check again, eyebrows raised, fingers dancing across the keyboard. Rachel couldn't breathe. "This is legitimate," the woman finally said. "Cleared. Funds are verified." The words hung in the air like an unfamiliar language. Rachel nodded slowly, unsure whether to cry, run, or laugh. $50,000. Real. In her name. She stepped outside, blinking against the daylight. The city moved as it always did, impatient, loud, unaware. But something inside her had shifted. She needed answers. Back home, Rachel opened her battered laptop. The check bore a name, Nicholas Carter. She typed it in, expecting nothing. The screen lit up with headlines. Awards. Magazine covers. Profiles. CEO of Carter Tech. A billionaire. Her stomach dropped. She scrolled through interviews, photos of him at conferences, ribbon cuttings, charity galas. There he was, the same face from the bus. The stranger who hadn't flinched when she leaned on him. The man who disappeared without a word. What kind of CEO rode buses at midnight? Her thoughts spiraled. What if it was a test? A trap? What if accepting the money came with consequences she couldn't see? She stared at the check again. Relief warred with fear. She had rent due. Her daughter's shoes had holes. But no amount of need silenced her instinct. This gift had weight. And she hadn't asked for it. That night, she wrote a letter. "Mr. Carter, I don't know why you chose me, but thank you. Your gesture meant more than I can express. However, I can't accept this money. I'm sure you meant well, but I need to stand on my own. That's how I've made it this far. I hope you understand." She sealed the check inside with the note, copied the corporate office address, and dropped it at the post office before she could change her mind. As the envelope disappeared behind the mail slot, a strange calm settled over her. Not pride, not defiance, just clarity. She didn't know what would come of it. But for the first time in a long while, Rachel felt in control of her story. Back home, she tucked her daughter in and sat quietly at the kitchen table. One man had changed everything. And yet, she'd given it back. But somehow, she knew this wasn't the end. The phone rang mid-morning, just as Rachel was folding laundry in silence. Unknown number. She hesitated, then answered. "Miss Garcia? This is Carter Tech. Mr. Nicholas Carter would like to meet with you. Are you available this week for an interview?" Interview? The word caught her off guard. She opened her mouth, then closed it. They didn't mention the check, the envelope, or her letter. Just an interview. Confused but intrigued, she agreed. 2 days later, she stood before a towering glass building that seemed to stretch into the clouds. Her thrift store blouse felt out of place in the sea of tailored suits streaming past her. Still, she walked in, shoulders back. The receptionist barely looked up. "Rachel Garcia?" "Yes. You're expected." An elevator whisked her to the 28th floor. When the doors slid open, he was already there, Nicholas Carter, crisp as ever, leaning casually against a marble pillar. He smiled like he knew her. "Miss Garcia, I'm glad you came." Rachel stepped forward slowly. "I thought this was about returning the check." "It's not," he said, leading her into a private office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a skyline view. "I got your note. Most people wouldn't have sent it back. I didn't want to owe anyone. That's why I called." She sat cautiously across from him, unsure of what was unfolding. Nicholas leaned forward, elbows on the desk. "I read your words more than once. The way you wrote about standing on your own. You didn't ask for help, yet you inspired someone who has everything." Rachel blinked, not sure whether to be flattered or alarmed. "I didn't do anything special." "That's where you're wrong," he said quietly. "You reminded me of my mother. She raised me alone. She worked 3 jobs. She never asked for anything either." A pause settled between them. "I didn't just want to help," he continued. "I wanted to understand the woman who fell asleep on my shoulder, who sent back a gift most people would run to the bank with." Rachel stared at him, unsure what to say. He reached into a folder. "There's an opening in our community engagement division. You've lived the challenges we're trying to solve. You bring a voice we don't have." Her hands gripped her bag. "I didn't come here looking for a job." Nicholas smiled. "That's exactly why I want you." And just like that, the moment shifted from mystery to possibility. Steam rose from their coffee cups, curling upward like quiet thoughts. The corner cafe buzzed faintly around them, distant conversations, clinking spoons, but at their small table, time slowed. Rachel cupped her drink, gaze steady on the swirl of cream inside. She hadn't planned on sharing anything personal. But Nicholas had asked, not with curiosity, but with a kind of patience she hadn't known in years. I had my daughter when I was 22, she began softly. Her father was gone before she was born. Said he'd get diapers. Never came back. Nicholas listened, silent. I worked the day shift at a diner. Cleaned offices at night. Picked up a third job at a grocery store on weekends. Still couldn't make rent some months. We've been evicted twice. Slept in a friend's car once. But I kept going. For her. She blinked, the words sharper than she remembered them feeling. I'm not ashamed. Just tired of pretending I'm fine. He didn't flinch. No pity. Just a deepening quiet in his eyes. My mom was like that, he said, voice low. She took in 2 more kids after me, all from the system. We never had much, but she stretched everything. I didn't know we were poor until a teacher mentioned it. Rachel raised an eyebrow. You were in foster care? He nodded. Until I was 8. Then my mom. My real mom adopted me. She wasn't my blood, but she gave me something better. Stability. She leaned back, letting that sink in. You don't look like someone who's been through that, she said after a beat. I built walls. Success became armor. He gave a small smile. But the truth? I never stopped thinking about people like her. Like you. Their eyes met. The space between them now warm, not awkward. 2 lives, so different on the surface. Suddenly aligned through shared scars and silent struggles. Rachel tapped her fingers on the ceramic mug. Most people don't see single moms. They see a burden. A mistake. You didn't. I saw someone who wouldn't quit, he said simply. She nodded, emotion tugging at the edges of her composure. She hadn't come here to be understood. But in this quiet moment, over 2 cooling cups of coffee, she realized something rare was happening. They weren't just talking. They were seeing each other. For the first time, Rachel stood by the window, watching the city pulse below. Conference rooms lined the hallway behind her, sleek and glass-walled, filled with people who looked nothing like her. She smoothed the wrinkles from her second-hand blazer, still unsure why she'd come back. Nicholas entered, holding a folder. He set it on the table without preamble. This is for you. She turned. What is it? A formal offer, he said. Community Outreach Director. Rachel blinked. Director? It's not about a title, he explained. It's about experience. Lived experience. You know what families need because you've been where they are. That's something my board can't teach. She didn't move. The room felt too large, too polished. I'm not qualified. You think I was when I started Carter Tech? His tone was gentle but firm. I had grit and a reason. You've got both. She stared at the folder, afraid to touch it. A part of her still expected to wake up in her apartment, the heater rattling and a late notice on the counter. What if I mess it up? She whispered. You've already raised a child on your own, held 3 jobs, and stayed kind, he said. That's harder than anything you'll face here. Rachel looked up, and their eyes met steady, unflinching. I'm offering you a real role, he added. Not because I feel sorry for you, but because you've earned it. This isn't charity. It's recognition. The weight of his words settled over her. All her life, people had looked at her like a case to manage, a cautionary tale, or a number in a report. But in this room, she wasn't being rescued. She was being invited. Nicholas continued, we're building programs to support low-income families, childcare subsidies, job training, affordable housing resources. You lead that effort. Shape it. Still, she hesitated. And if I fail? He didn't look away. Then you'll learn. But I don't think you will. The confidence in his voice unnerved her more than the offer itself. She'd never been expected to succeed, let alone supported to do so. Rachel stepped forward, picked up the folder, and slowly opened it. Her name sat at the top of the page. Real ink. Real paper. Real chance. She exhaled. This wasn't the life she imagined, but maybe it was the one she was meant to build. Okay, she said softly. Let's see what I can do. The revolving glass doors whooshed behind her as Rachel stepped into the building, tall, calm, composed. No hurried steps, no second-guessing. Her blazer fit perfectly, her heels clicked with purpose across polished floors that once felt intimidating. Outside, the city stirred with its usual chaos, but her morning had started with quiet ritual. A hug at daycare, a cheerful wave from her daughter, and a whispered, "You've got this, Mom," that echoed louder than any crowd. Now she stood in the same lobby she once entered as a bundle of nerves. But today, heads turned for a different reason. She belonged. Nicholas stood near the elevators, 2 coffees in hand. No assistants, no entourage, just him, waiting. His smile was the same, though now softened with familiarity. "You're early," he said, handing her the cup. "So are you. I figured I'd start the day with the one person who's been making things move faster than the company ever did." Rachel laughed. Light, effortless. A sound she hadn't known she could still make months ago. They stepped into the elevator, floor buttons lighting up like promises kept. Her reflection in the mirrored walls caught her eye. Not the tired woman from the bus, but someone reborn. Stronger. Sure. Work awaited. Meetings, reports, a site visit to a housing initiative she helped design. Her role had grown, and so had she. What started as a leap of faith had become a life of impact. As they rode up, Nicholas glanced her way. "Still think you weren't qualified?" She smirked. "Every day. Right before I remember all the reasons I am." The doors slid open. Colleagues greeted her with nods, respect woven into every glance. A framed photo of her and her daughter, grinning in front of the new community center, hung near her office entrance. Proof of purpose. She placed her coffee on the desk, powered up her computer, and let her eyes sweep across the city skyline. Not long ago, she had stared at these same towers from a broken bus seat, clutching hope by its last thread. Now, she was shaping the view. Nicholas paused in her doorway, sipping his coffee. "Funny how things turn out," he mused. Rachel leaned back in her chair, a small smile forming. "Sometimes," she said, "life sits down next to you quietly and changes everything." If you enjoyed this story, ensure to like, share, and subscribe for more amazing, heartfelt stories like this. Also, let us know where you are watching from and drop your thoughts in the comments. What did you think of Rachel's strength and transformation? Did Nicholas Carter's quiet gesture surprise you? How about the bond that grew between 2 strangers on a late-night bus? We'd love to hear your favorite moment, whether it was the check, the interview, or that final, life-changing offer. Join the conversation and stay tuned for more inspiring stories that prove one moment can change everything.